What's up, everybody? Welcome back to day negative 11. 11 days left. Today's gonna be kind of like yesterday, except... Sorry. Today's gonna be like yesterday, except that it definitely is a lot more important to the story, at least in my mind. I mean, not saying that yesterday was for nothing, but today was definitely another fight that me and Chrissy had gone through, and it does really take a lot of energy out of me, talking about all these things. It does really hurt for me to talk about this, because I really don't want to, I don't want to slander her name, even though I'm using a fake name, because, even though, like I've said like millions of times, you already know the end game, you know that the two of us don't last. It doesn't mean that I still respect and really cherish the time that we did have together, and for me to talk about the times when we argued and when we fought, even though it's pretty necessary to the story, it still hurts a little bit. But anyway, this is a few days after we had gotten to what I talked about yesterday, when we first got to that first fight. And to be honest, in the coming days there would be definitely a lot more, some pretty petty, some a little bit bigger, like today. It all started when we were hanging out. We were still trying to stay together, really. I think what it was it wasn't, I started to realize that it wasn't just me that really almost felt like I needed the relationship at this point. I think it was also Chrissy, because I can't really speak for her, but it almost feels like I was the last string holding her to this place. That, without me, I know she liked Rios, but without me, I don't think she'd really want to stay here. Because if we broke up, I don't think she'd want to stay here either. And, I think the both of us, even though we probably both knew that it should have ended a while ago, that we kept going. We both were trying to hold on to something that wasn't even there anymore. And anyway, the fight that day was about a letter that Chrissy had gotten from Robert. Now, like I said yesterday, him and her family had already been back in Georgia for a little bit. But before he left, I found out that that he had written something to her and gave it to her before he boarded his flight. And me still being me, and us still very loosely, I guess you could say, by definition, dating, I wanted to know what was in it, what he was, why he wrote it, what he wrote it about, I should say. Because, I was worried that he wrote something to try to persuade Chrissy to go back home to break up with me, and I didn't want that. And if that was the case, then I definitely wanted to know. And I told that to Chrissy. That was my argument when we started fighting, that while I respected the decision that she made to not tell me and to hold the letter for me, I wanted to at least know if that was true, if he had tried to, break us up, basically. And she wouldn't even give me that. And, the more that we got into it, the more we yelled at each other. It's funny because I didn't even think about, think that we were heading towards the end, but, and I don't remember exactly how it happened, but if you remember yesterday, I did say that Chrissy had a very good memory, that she remembered things that we had talked about really, way back when we first started just getting to know each other, not even as a couple. And Chrissy basically eventually bluntly just stated, how can I let you read this if you never let me read your letter to Asna back in high school? And I have to explain that a little bit. I did talk about what happened between me and Asna back in high school, a few videos ago. I think it was day 20 and 21. But what I forgot to mention was that it wasn't really a letter, it was, it was my paper, and then I wrote a little bit of how I felt on the back of that paper. But what I forgot to tell you guys about was the fact that I had an extra copy of that. Obviously I had an extra copy of the paper because that was an assignment, that was on my computer. But the stuff I wrote on the back wasn't the only copy I had of that. I wrote it down on paper before I put it on that, because I wanted to make sure I was going to say the right things, even though they obviously turned out to be stupid things. But that's not the same. That's not the story for this time. And so that's what Chrissy was asking. She knew that I had that in my possession, and I had kept it up to then, and I would keep it for at least a couple more years until I finally had the strength to, toss that and move past that. But anyway, and it, in hindsight, obviously that was a fair question. How can she trust me with something like that if I didn't trust her? And I got that. I understood. And I probably should have definitely realized that and just left and just moved on. I should have. It would have been a lot easier for me to just drop that and just move on. But I didn't. And we argued some more, and I eventually obligated. And I said that fine, if you really want to read what I wrote to Asana back in high school, be my guest. I'll bring it next time. Obviously I didn't have it with me. We were at Chrissy's apartment. And it's weird because she did say okay, that we were actually going to do this, that I was going to give her the letter I wrote to Asana, and she was going to give me the letter Robert wrote to her. And once both of us did eventually exchange those letters, and I read Robert's letter, and it did definitely suck to find out that I was right, that he was trying to pull us together. Because it's one thing for me to be jealous of a guy, to think that he wants to get in between us to end our world that we created over almost an entire year. But for me to actually be right is completely different. on one hand, I was kind of glad that I was right, because at least I had closure. But on the other hand, I was definitely poking at something I shouldn't have again. And, it really sucked to find out that, I was right, that Robert was just basically, I don't like the guy, but I'm trying to find a word that I want to use. He was really just a dick. I'm not gonna lie. And yeah, that definitely did not bode very well for us once I found that out. That didn't end. It didn't end there. The fighting didn't end. And it definitely led to, our downfall. I've said this time and time again that, that we obviously don't end up together in 2014, but, as we get closer to the end, it's gonna feel worse and worse. For me, especially, having to talk about these and explaining all of these things that happened to us, because if I remember right, I do not have a lot more to talk about before I reach the end of our story. If my calculations are right, in 1 week I'm talking about the last day. It all makes sense when we get there, and especially once we're done on Easter. But the story's not over. The story hasn't just begun, but the story is definitely not over. It's almost there. But yeah, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. If you've been watching this entire time, even if you just started watching the other day or even today, I still thank you. Definitely, it does mean a lot. Just for anyone to hear my story. And yeah, like I said in the beginning, 11 more days until the end. And until tomorrow, then, see ya.